You're listening to the Fan to Fan podcast, and this is part 2 of my discussion on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Copycats. In this episode, I'll talk about the Toxic Crusaders, Creepy Crawlers, Bucky O'Hare, and more. Here we go. Welcome to the Fan to Fan podcast. I'm your host, Bernie Gonzalez, and in a previous episode, I discussed the many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle copycats that popped up in the 80s and 90s. The Turtles were a phenomenon, and it was only natural that a TV or animation studio exec would lean on their talent to create a worthy knockoff to ride the TMNT coattails, hoping for a slice of the Turtle merchandising empire pie. And the best way to copy something is to break it up into its parts. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were anthropomorphic animals with ironic names, full of extreme kid-friendly attitude, and radical catchphrases. So if you're a TV or animation studio exec, you asked for that. And that's exactly what we received. Stone Protectors, Extreme Dinosaurs, Samurai Pizza Cats, Biker Mice from Mars, Street Sharks, Avenger Penguins, Battletoads, and Road Rovers were just some of the TMNT copycats I discussed in that previous episode. But while I was doing my research for those TMNT ripoffs, I also had a separate list going. Cartoons that took their cue from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle wave of popularity, but with their own unique spin, and well, that's the topic for today's episode. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle kind of copycats. Some of these properties skip the anthropomorphic animal angle altogether, and the first one I'll discuss is Botsmaster.
You know, the planet is in a jam, a diabolical plan of only one man. A paradigm in international sports. Got me a 3 A's or he'd be for jump.
Yeah, invaders, you forgot about the boys and the guy who made us. Zip Zoolander, master of boy spots.
We'll undermine the plot. Botsmaster.
Botsmaster was a 1993 cartoon that followed Ziff ZZ Zoolander, the title character who creates a crew of robots in order to fight the evil Paradigm, who is trying to, of course, take over the world. But being the genius robotics engineer he is, ZZ just doesn't create a bunch of artificial intelligence that could easily take out the supervillain's evil empire by hacking into his infrastructure or dismantling his plan for world domination. That'd be too easy. Instead, ZZ assembles a robotic rapper, a medic, a ninja, a chef, and a few other brain-operated young zygotopic zoids, better known as the Boys, because it was the 90s and the Turtles were popular, and that's what the kids wanted to see. Botsmaster aired for a respectable 40 episodes, and I distinctly remember watching them very early in the morning, like 6 a.m. early. If the cartoon wasn't airing in the 7 to 8 a.m. time slot, right when you were getting ready for school, or in the 3 to 5 p.m. time slot when you were out of school and, well, supposedly working on homework in front of the TV like me, when the show aired at the crack of dawn, that's when you knew it wasn't going to be very good. Botsmaster did feature some occasional groundbreaking 3D animation that they called Laser Time, with a Z, of course. It was a short segment where ZZ would shout out,
Listen up, you all. You're the boys brigade. When it's laser time, put on the 3D shade. Laser time, boys!
Followed by an image of 3D glasses on the screen. If you had the special glasses packaged with the action figures based on the series, of which they only made 3 before it was discontinued, you were in luck. But even if you didn't have the 3D specs, the boys would do their 3D thing until ZZ would call game over. The series concluded with ZZ exposing Paradigm's plot and being recognized as a hero, but Paradigm gets his hand on the secret of creating sentient robots of his own and vows to get his revenge. Which never happened because, unlike the Turtles, the Botsmaster toy line never caught on, so, well, the cartoon was canceled. I think the biggest mark against the cartoon has to be the fact that only 6 episodes of Botsmaster was ever released on VHS, on 6 different VHS tapes, so you only had 1 episode per tape. And as a kid, that was the worst. Here you are trying to get your mom or dad to let you toss the VHS tape into the cart when you're paying $10 for 22 minutes of animation. Even Laser Time doesn't make up for that atrocity.
Botsmaster.
Game over.
Next up are the Toxic Crusaders. What happens when you combine an R-rated movie directed by Lloyd Kaufman featuring strong sexual content in addition to intense violence with the TMNT trend? You get the Toxic Crusaders, a 1990 PG spin-off of the 1984 movie featuring Toxie and the Toxic Avengers. It may seem far-fetched to include this animated series with other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle knockoffs, but there's no denying that Toxic Crusaders doesn't get the green light without the success of the Turtle foursome. And while the Toxic Crusaders didn't star walking and talking dogs, cats, or dinosaurs, it does feature a small group of misfit mutants with unique powers who fight crime in the appropriately named town of, well, Tromaville.
Hey, I'm sitting on top of the world with my mom, Tutu, and girl. Wow! Toxic Crusaders, Toxic Crusaders, Toxic.
The Crusaders were led by Toxie, a not-so-handsome mutant with superhuman powers, with a good heart and a passion for law-abiding citizenry. Then there was No-Zone, a test pilot who flew through a hole in the ozone layer and crashed into a silo of radioactive pepper, allowing him to sneeze powerfully from his mutated, oversized nose. And that is 100% true. You can look it up for yourself. Next, there was Major Disaster, a soldier who gained the ability to control plants after falling into a radioactive swamp. Junkyard was originally a junkyard dog and a homeless man merged together into one humanoid dog thanks to the transforming powers of toxic waste. And finally, there was Headbanger, a defected villain who was part mad scientist and part Telegram boy surfer. Again, I am not making this stuff up. For 13 episodes, the Toxic Crusaders fought Dr. Kilimoff and Zarzosta, cockroach-like aliens from the far planet Smogula, with henchmen like Psycho and Bonehead, along with their stormtrooper-like radiation rangers. The baddies' ultimate goal was to pollute Earth's environment and make this planet identical to their homeworld. Not only were the Toxic Crusaders a crime-fighting team inspired by the Turtles, they also followed a trend of ecotainment, environmentally considerate cartoons of the time that included Captain Planet and the Planeteers and Widget the World Watcher.
Go Planet!
There were Toxic Avenger coloring books, Halloween costumes, and video games. The entire series has been released on DVD, but I'll always remember the cartoon from my trips to Child World. Trips when I was able to convince my mom to let me run up and down the aisles filled with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures. But instead of buying one of the Mean Green Machine, I'd opt for a mutated neon green janitor with a freaky looking face and a mop who fought evil with his fellow Toxic Crusaders.
Toxic Crusaders.
It's Dr. Kilimoff, the evil alien who wants to pollute the whole world. He's going to smogify every tree in Tromaville. But look who's going to stop him. It's Toxie, the trendy yet hideously deformed leader of the Toxic Crusaders.
I'm toxic, but I'm tasteful.
Toxic Crusaders. They're proud, but they still get girls.
Hideously deformed action figures from Playmate.
Speaking of bizarre-looking heroes, let's move on to the Creepy Crawlers. In 1994, Saban Entertainment, the folks responsible for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Digimon, introduced us to the Creepy Crawlers. The cartoon was based on Toy Max's Creepy Crawler Activity Toy, where each of the 12 figures came with a mold for use with the Creepy Crawlers Toy Oven, where you could make custom accessories for the figures using plastic goop. Instead of mutant turtles, the title characters were a team of crying, fighting, mutant anthropomorphic bugs that looked, well, creepy. But like Toxie, they were friendly. They were created by a once-every-1,000-year planetary alignment, the magical Millennium Moment, that rained down cosmic energies onto a device called the Magic Maker. Out of the Magic Maker came the Goop Mandos. Hocus Locus was the team's jokester. Volt Jolt was based on a lightning bug, and he could shoot electricity. And T3 was a tick and also the team's muscle. The three teamed up with a magic-loving kid named Chris Carter to fight off discredited magician Professor Guggengrime and the Crime Grimes.
Look, they're totally bizarre. My name's Chris. Let me tell you about the moonlighting night when creepy crawler Goomandos came in a flash of light. All this glowing goop came pouring out, and then they appeared. And they each got different powers, though they're all kind of weird. Creepy crawler.
Creepy Crawlers lasted for 2 seasons, or a total of 23 episodes, and like a number of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle copycats, the heroes were another product of mutating super ooze. But even with the slimy toy line and the magic element, the Creepy Crawlers made sure to tap into the 90s vibe of extreme, Valley Boy surfers with totally tubular catchphrases.
We'd better bug out.
I'll continue my conversation on TMNT knockoffs in a second, but in the meantime, remember you can find the Fan to Fan podcast at www.fanpodcast.com. Facebook, just search Fan2Fan Podcast. That's FAN, the number 2, FAN, or on Twitter, @Fan2Fan Podcast. I'd love to hear from you, so reach out, send a message, and let me know what you think of the show. Thanks.
And now, on with the show.
The next TMNT knockoff on my list not only features a team of wisecracking heroes with special powers, they've also been pegged as a ripoff of another animated series. The Mummies Alive cartoon first aired in 1997, and the show starred a group of Egyptian warriors who were resurrected to protect a modern-day reincarnation of an ancient pharaoh.
A little boy named Presley found a secret out this year, that he was once a pharaoh when the Egyptians ruled the world, and now the sorcerer named Scarab tries to get him day and night. But Presley has four guardians to protect his very life. He has the mummies.
Jakal uses the spirit of the falcon, Ryath uses the spirit of the snake, Armon uses the spirit of the ram, and Nefertina uses the spirit of the cat. By yelling, "with the strength of Ra," they summoned magical armor and powers to fight superhuman evildoers like Scarab and his fire-spitting henchwoman Heka. I put Mummies Alive on the list because, like I mentioned before, shows like Toxic Crusaders and Creepy Crawlers don't exist without the immense popularity of the Turtles. And if other cartoons were taking dinosaurs, sharks, or cows and transforming them into extreme dinosaurs, street sharks, or Wild West cowboys of Moo Mesa, you pivot away from animals with bugs, kid-friendly radioactive freaks, or a team of superhero mummies. And aside from being inspired by the Ninja Turtles, the Mummies Alive has been compared to gargoyles, which makes sense. Eric and Julia Lewald were the writers and producers for Mummy Alive. They were also the head writers for Gargoyles, the Goliath Chronicles cartoon series. Both animated series share common elements, including a group of warriors from the past that awaken in the present to fight off a wealthy, immortality-obsessed enemy. They have difficult adapting to the modern world, and they both use mythological figures. Fellow fan and friend Andre Walker and I actually discussed the Gargoyles animated series in episode 24 of the Fan to Fan podcast, along with some other canceled too soon cartoons like Exo Squad, Symbiotic Titan, Young Justice, and Mighty Max. But we don't discuss Mummies Alive because it wasn't that memorable and likely only made it onto the airwaves thanks to the turtle power of the Heroes in a Half Shell. I'll continue my conversation on TMNT knockoffs in a second, but in the meantime, while these previous examples didn't feature walking and talking animals, other TMNT knockoffs embraced the anthropomorphic animal superhero team wholeheartedly. The SWAT Cats being one of my favorites, a duel of anthropomorphic Daredevil pilot cats, with a K of course, that protected Mega Cat City from the evil Dark Cat, Dr. Viper, and the Metallicats. Andre and I also discussed the SWAT Cats in that same fan-to-fan episode where we discussed Gargoyles. So if you want to hear us wax poetic about T-Bone, Razor, and Turbo Cat, our love for SWAT Cats, the Radical Squadron, and other cartoons that were canceled too soon, check out episode 24.
Right on target. It's now or never.
Here's a cartoon series we didn't miss, the Mighty Ducks, the animated series. After the Mighty Ducks movie was released in 1992, Disney adapted the Mighty Ducks film into a cartoon. It premiered in 1996 and ran for 26 episodes on ABC, and then syndicated programming block The Disney Afternoon, along with other Mouse House creations like Darkwing Duck, Tailspin, DuckTales, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I know all of those cartoons feature anthropomorphic animals gallivanting on superheroic adventures, but these ducks had no relation to the other famous Disney ducks like Donald or Scrooge, and it's undeniable that the Mighty Ducks took their inspiration from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Instead of the underdog hockey team we saw in the movie, the show featured a team of hockey-playing alien ducks who fought crime with unique abilities and had distinct characters and had names like Wildwing, Nosedive, Thunderbeak, Hardwing, and Mallory McMallard, all created by a trio of talented folks, including David Wise, who, in 1987, was asked to develop and write a 5-part animated television pilot based on this little-known independent comic by Barrage Studios titled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Wise was one of the principal forces behind the TMNT cartoon, creating classic catchphrases like Cowabunga Dude and developing characters like Krang, Rocksteady, and Bebop while writing and story editing over 100 episodes. Disney didn't skip on the Mighty Ducks voice talent either. The Mighty Ducks had some well-known actors and voiceover industry pros, including Ian Zerling, James Belushi, Clancy Brown, Tim Curry, Brad Garrett, and Frank Welker. Unfortunately for the Mighty Ducks cartoon fans, Disney has all but forgotten their crime-fighting Mallard team. The show hasn't aired since 2004. It's never received a full series VHS or DVD release, and the only evidence of the animated series lives at Disney Quest, an indoor interactive theme park located in downtown Disney area of the Walt Disney World Resort. They have an attraction called Mighty Ducks Pinball Slam with Wild Wing, who's the only character from the show featured as a life-size cutout at the front of the game, and then again as the goalie. But Wild Wing's days are numbered after Disney announced in June of 2015 that they were closing Disney Quest in 2016. Lucky for the Mighty Duck fans, they'll always have the series' main theme song full of 90s guitar riffs and rock vocals as performed by Mickey Thomas of Jefferson's Starship.
Here come the Mighty Ducks, burning up the ice. Just try to stop the Mighty Ducks, and you're gonna pay the price. Here come the Mighty Ducks, fighting for the goal. Let's hear it for the Mighty Ducks. Time to rock and roll. Let's go. Let's go. Ducks rock. Mighty Ducks rock. Let's hear it for the Mighty Ducks.
I'll conclude my review of TMNT knockoffs in a few seconds by going over one of my favorite cartoons of all time. But in the meantime, if you are listening on iTunes, please take a moment to rate and review. Just search for the Fan to Fan podcast, go on to reviews, enter a star rating, or write a review if you have a second or two, and click send. That's how easy it is. I will greatly appreciate it. Thanks. This one has a special place in my heart. It only ran for 13 episodes in 1991, but I vividly remember waking up very early on weekdays before school and watching the series with my brother and singing that awesome theme song.
In another dimension, another time and space, a parallel universe is falling on its face. When out of the chaos, who else could it be? Bucky Animal Adventurers from SPACE. Bucky! Captain Bucky O'Hare. He goes when no ordinary rabbit would dare. If your righteous indignation has suffered a hit, and your photon accelerator's broken a bit, and you're losing your mind, and you're having a fit, get the funky fresh rabbit who can take care of it. Bucky! Captain Bucky O'Hare. Who's it, Bucky? That's Bucky. Bucky O'Hare.
Bucky O'Hare was a French-American animated series by the good people at Continuity Comics, Sunbow, and a Hasbro subsidiary. The cartoon was based on a comic by Continuity Comics, an indie comic book publisher formed by legendary artist Neil Adams in 1984. Adams had worked on Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, among others, and is regarded as the comic artist that transformed Batman from the 60s camp to a more modern, more realistic, athletic, and gritty detective. So Continuity published comics from 84 to 1994, and they employed some big names in the comic artist world beyond Neil Adams. Their bullpen also included comic legends like Mike Deodato Jr., Mark Teixeira, and Bart Sears. Some other titles included Cyber-Rad and Revengers, perfect titles for the extreme 90s comics landscape that featured DC superhero teams like Extreme Justice, Marvel's Armored and Reborn heroes, and characters like Guy Gardner and Vengeance. And among those angst-filled four-color offerings was Bucky O'Hare, created by comic book writer Larry Hama and Michael Golden, featuring art by Golden. Hama is best known as a Marvel Comics writer and editor who wrote the licensed comic book series G.I. Joe Real American Hero, based on the Hasbro toy line, and Michael Golden, who co-created the X-Men character Rogue, also worked on G.I. Joe along with Marvel's Micronauts comic. Bucky O'Hare makes his first appearance in 1984 in the pages of an anthology titled Echo of Future Past, and we're introduced to the entire crew. Bucky O'Hare is a green hare who captains a spaceship with one of the best names ever, the Righteous Indignation.
Attention all hands, battle stations. Get ready for some righteous toe tag with a squadron of toad fighters.
Bucky was voiced by Jason Mikas, who played in animated television shows such as Sabrina the Animated Series, Dragon Tales, and Bionicle. Jenny is the first maiden pilot. She's a cat with magical powers that include telepathy, astral projection, energy blast, and healing. Then there's Dead-Eyed Duck, the four-armed former space pirate duck and spaceship gunner with a missing eye and a short fuse. He's cranky and stubborn, more of a shoot first and ask questions later type of duck.
Them's magic words, Bucky, my boy. It's been too long since old Dead-Eyed Duck got to croak some toadies.
He was voiced by Scott McNeil, who went on to work on Stormhawks, Dragon Ball Z, Mobile Suit Gundam, Inuyasha, Fullmetal Alchemist, and X-Men Evolution. There's Blinky, an advanced AFC, or Android First Class.
Android First Class Blinky reporting, sir.
Then there's Bruiser, a Betelgeusian berserker baboon, who is more bronze than brains.
What a pile of junk.
Finally, there's Willie DeWitt, a preteen human from San Francisco who enters the Aniverse, or Animal Universe, making just about every character an anthropomorphic animal. So Willie enters the Aniverse through a portal between the ship's photon accelerator and his own accelerator at home because, of course, he's a preteen genius engineer. He replaces Bruce, the former engineer who was Bruiser's brother and was killed, or in more kid-friendly terms, attained to oneness with the Aniverse. Later, Willie became stranded in the Aniverse when his parents turned off the photon accelerator back in his room. Bucky and his crew decide to keep Willie on as a secret from the space organization and the Toads. Willie was voiced by actor Shane Meyer, who also worked on another late 80s, early 90s cartoon series called Captain N, the Game Master. So back to Bucky. Bucky and his crew belong to the space organization, which stands for Sentient Protoplasm Against Colonial Encroachment, who is fighting the evil forces of the Toad Empire. Complex, with a K, is the ruler of the Toad Empire, a computer program designed to run the consumerist Toad culture, but instead decides to take it over and turn it into a military. Then there's the Toad Air Marshal, one of Complex's commanders, with a uniform adorned with medals and a face covered in warts. You have Toad Borg, one of Complex's elite troops, who is part robot, part Toad, thus Toad Borg. He was voiced by Richard Newman, who worked on some memorable cartoons, including Exo Squad, where he was the voice of Phaeton. He also did the voice of M. Bison in the Street Fighter cartoon series. And in any evil empire, you have to have stormtroopers. Or in the universe of Bucky O'Hare, you have Storm Toads, the mindless Toad foot soldiers who serve the Toad Empire. So in 1991, Bucky, his crew, and the Toad Empire made the jump from the page to the tube when Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars was released as an animated series. Again, it only ran for 13 episodes, but for my memory, it was terrific. And, as in most cases, the comics and the animated series had some major differences. In the cartoon, Bruce, the former baboon engineer, is transported to another dimension, and Willie, our human hook, can go back and forth between Earth and the Aniverse. The animated series also introduced Commander Dogstar, who is Bucky's ally and the captain of another spaceship, also introduced Mimi LeFou, who captains the Screaming Mimi, another great name for a spaceship. Al Negator was an anthropomorphic mercenary crocodile with a Cajun accent. Think Boba Fett meets the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain Leatherhead. And then there's Frick and Frax, the Bebop and Rocksteady of the Bucky cartoon, bumbling Toad comic relief for the young viewing audience. Through the 13 episodes, we follow the crew of the Righteous Indignation as they take on the Toad Empire. In its 13-episode run, the cartoon really focused on Captain Bucky O'Hare, who finds out that his home planet of Warren has been taken over by the Toad Empire, and the Toads are willing to do anything to expand their reach. They build a climate converter using slave labor. Yes, you heard that correctly. And in another episode, Complex uses television to control the mammal population. In another episode, they kidnap a princess in order to obtain her mysterious powers. There's even a treaty between the Universal Animal Council, or the UAC, and the Space Pirates in an effort to mobilize their united efforts against the Toads. And Bucky's love life is actually explored in one episode where Jenny the pilot appears jealous of Captain Mimi's flirting. So some pretty cool stuff.
Let's go Toads!
Hasbro released a Bucky O'Hare toy line in 1991, including good guys Bucky O'Hare, Deadeye Duck, Willie DeWitt, Blinky, Bruiser, Commander Dogstar. They also released the villainous Toadborg, Air Marshal, Storm Toad Troopers, and Al Negator. And along with the action figures, there were also 2 vehicles released, the Toad Croaker and the Toad Double Bubble.
Look out! It's the Toad Double Bubble. Listen. I love that shout. Oh no, it's after Willie. That Double Bubble's got gruesome gripper claws. Hang on, Willie. It's Bucky to the rescue in the Toad Croaker. Let's croak toads. I hate that sound.
Bucky and his crew made it to the arcades in 1992 in a game similar to the 92 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. The arcade game's cutscenes actually featured the same voice talent from the Bucky O'Hare cartoon, and Bucky actually made it to the home video game market in 92 as well in an NES video game with gameplay very similar to Mega Man. If you search around the internet, you'll find that Neil Adams has not abandoned Bucky and his crew. Adams is reportedly working on a Bucky O'Hare movie project, and Vanguard Press even collected all of Bucky O'Hare's printed adventures, which included Bucky's appearances in the anthology series Echo of Future Past, along with another 15 issues that were released in the UK to coincide with the cartoon series. And speaking of the cartoon series, unfortunately, it's not easy to find, at least legally fully authorized editions. During the 90s, VHS tapes for the series were released by distributor Family Home Entertainment. And after the VHS era, Sunbow Productions was purchased by Sony Wonder, who shut down in March of 2007. In 2008, Hasbro announced that it had obtained the rights to all of the Sunbow animated series based on Hasbro properties. This included Transformers, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Jem and the Holograms, and more, and presumably included Bucky O'Hare. So hopefully, in the very near future, we'll see the DVD release of the entire Bucky O'Hare cartoon series. Until then, I'll just keep remembering that amazing theme song and pretend to ride in the righteous indignation one more time.
Bucky! Captain Bucky O'Hare! You say Bucky! I said Bucky! Bucky O'Hare! Let's croak us some toads!
That's it for this episode. Tune in next time for more fan-to-fan conversations on the Fan-to-Fan podcast. Thanks for listening.
A tale of terror that will leave you limp. So hideous and shocking, you won't believe your eyes. His hunger for victims was never satisfied.